Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Good evening, and welcome to Chicago Tonight Black Voices. I'm Angel Ito. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. Thanks for sharing a part of your weekend with us. On the show tonight, a grassroots movement fighting homelessness in Chicago proposes a new tax as a long-term solution to housing instability. 11 public art groups receive funding from a local nonprofit on a mission to bridge the gap between art and environmental activism. We talk with two of the award recipients. And an art exhibition drawing parallels among torture techniques from Chicago to Cuba.
It's important that they know that there's so many different opportunities in the performing arts arena.
And a local jazz vocalist is exposing Chicago youth to opportunities within performing arts. First off tonight, a grassroots movement to end homelessness in Chicago is calling on the city to address the problem long-term. In June, a coalition gave Mayor Lori Lightfoot a failing report card on her administration's progress on the issue. Now, they're rallying support among council members for their Bring Chicago Home campaign. The proposal would increase the city's real estate transfer tax, a one-time tax paid when a property is sold, by nearly 2% on properties over $1 million. The coalition says it would impact about 4% of properties. They say the move would generate $163 million to fund permanent affordable housing with wraparound services. Joining us are Caesar Hill, a member of Organizing Neighborhoods for Equality Northside, and Harry Williams, a grassroots leader with the Chicago Coalition for the Homeless. Now, Caesar, let's start with you. Can you give us a snapshot of how big the problem of experiencing homelessness in Chicago is right now?
Well, I can tell you that in 2019, just prior to the pandemic, there were more than 58,000 people in Chicago experiencing homelessness. Of those, nearly 13,000 were children, over 34,000 were Black, and over 14 were Latinx. And most people, they become homeless due to economic reasons. And housing in Chicago is not built on what you earn. Chicagoans must earn 25.77 cents an hour to afford a two-bedroom apartment. And a minimum wage is currently $15.40 an hour. Other contributing factors to homelessness are, the systemic racism, lack of access to mental health and health care, domestic violence, and for youth, abuse at home or coming out as LGBTQ.
City data indicates a high proportion of Chicagoans experiencing homelessness are Black. Now, what do you think contributes to that?
Well, I feel like let's say, for example, the West Side, they have some of the highest rates of homelessness in Chicago. In 2021, the 2021 school year, the 27th ward, which is Burnett's ward, and the 28th ward, which is Irvin's ward, were the second and third highest numbers of homeless students, with a total of around 1,182 students. In 2020, the 27th and the 28th ward, where the first and second highest had the first and second highest numbers of shelters, with the shelters requests, with a total of around 7,283 requests. There are also high numbers of people living doubled up or staying temporarily with others. West Side neighbors had it right around like 18,394 people living doubled up in 2019.
Caesar, jumping back to you now, would you say that there are communities or neighborhoods where homelessness is especially acute?
Yes. African Americans represent 3 out of 4 of the people who are experiencing this condition of being unsheltered. So, bear in mind, we want all people who are unsheltered to have their home, a permanent home with the wraparound services. But whenever a group is overrepresented as such, that is where more effort needs to be made to rectify this situation.
Absolutely. Now, Harry, jumping back to you, the Bring Chicago Home campaign proposes using a real estate transfer tax to create supportive housing for people experiencing homelessness. Now, why does the coalition believe that that is the best solution?
Well, the reason why we feel like it is necessary for the funding and that this would be the best solution because the funding needs to be legally dedicated so that it's not subject to budget cuts or the priorities of a particular administration while they're in office. The fund will be used to permanently house and will be used for permanent housing and wraparound services. And we need funding every year for that so people don't lose their housing. Dedicated for funding for housing is the best practice nationwide. Again, there's 47 states, including Illinois, and 700 cities and counties with legally dedicated funding. Dedicated funding is not new to Chicago. Again, we have 18 dedicated funding streams as we speak now that make up the $1 billion city budget. They're currently, there's dedicated funding for road repair, there's dedicated funding for libraries and dedicated funding for tourism, but there isn't dedicated funding for homelessness and wraparound services that are associated with experiencing homelessness.
Well, I hate to end it there, but that is all the time that we have today. Our thanks to Caesar Hill and Harry Williams.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much.
An exhibit at the DePaul Art Museum titled Remaking the Exceptional, Tea, Torture, and Reparations, Chicago to Guantanamo, is acknowledging 20 years since the opening of a United States extra-legal prison in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Now, the exhibition examines the local and international consequences of state violence while simultaneously celebrating some of those torture survivors, featuring art made while in the Guantanamo and Statesville prison. Now, a book also accompanies the exhibition with words written by artists, activists, and torture survivors to further investigate the connection between torture methods in Chicago and the U.S. military prison in Guantanamo Bay. Namaira Kwaja with the Chicago Police Torture Archive is one of those authors.
The clearest example is this interrogator named Richard Zulli, who's still alive today. And he was a part of torturing people at Area 3. He's not a part of the Burge crew, the Midnight crew, that is in the process of receiving reparations, and there's still a struggle to get them out of prison. But he used many of the same techniques in Chicago as he then took over to Guantanamo Bay. A lot of the techniques that were developed in military efforts all the way going back to Vietnam and even before that, things like using military field telephone and being able to use it as an electrocution device. That is something that is known to have happened in Vietnam, and that's a technique that John Burge also used in Chicago on Black men who are still around today and still can share their stories. Overall, the goal about bringing these two struggles together is to understand how similar the experiences are and also how similar the need for reparations and support are.
Now, that book is available for purchase and is also accompanied by a podcast. The exhibition is at the DePaul Art Museum until August 7th. Up next, an initiative pushing for more public art, but with a purpose.
Don't miss one of our stories. Get them all delivered to your desktop or mobile device with a subscription to the WTTW News Daily Briefing. Go to WTTW.com/dailybriefing and sign up.
A community-based art initiative is pushing for more public artwork across Chicago's neighborhoods. Earth Art Chicago is awarding nearly $550,000 to 11 arts organizations throughout the city. Now, the projects will raise awareness on climate and environmental issues with the goal of sparking action in communities. Joining us now with more are Uzma Noor Mohammed, Program Director of Illinois Science and Energy Innovation Foundation and creator and lead funder of Earth Art Chicago. Rashawn Ward, Artistic Director and CEO of Red Clay Dance Company, which was one of the award recipients. And John Veal, co-founder of Alt Space Chicago, also one of the award recipients. Uzma, let's start with you. Now, why do you think that public art is necessary?
Well, I think public art is necessary because art allows for the ability to bring emotion into the narrative. And in the climate narrative, that's so important because I think a lot of the language and conversation around climate and environment can sometimes be isolating, and it can be very removed from emotion and people. There's a lot of scientific language there. It's very data oriented. It's about thresholds and targets. And we think that art has the potential to bring in a piece of emotion and connection there for people to intersect and relate to these issues in a way that they can't when they see a scientific report or other findings that are around climate or environmental issues.
Now, honing in on that emotional aspect, why would you say that using art is a good approach to encourage action on environmental issues?
Well, public art specifically, and our approach to ensuring that the art is in neighborhoods in the city and spread out, and letting the community and organizations and communities have ownership over it, allows for the expression of so many different emotions: grief, anger, anxiety in the face of climate, and also allows for community engagement and connectedness. So this might be a good time for when these art pieces are being activated, for neighbors to meet each other, for organizations to connect with people in the neighborhood, and become involved with some of the work that the organizations are doing as well, since many of the grants that we awarded are both organizations and artists working together.
Rashawn, let's jump over to you. Now, your project is titled Fertile Grounds for Healing, and you plan to use research gathered from community conversations to create movement that encourages healing. Now, how do you think that movement can educate the public on environmental justice issues?
Well, our work is really around this idea of coming back to land and what it means to be in right relationship with land. There's so many different narratives around land and land labor and the production in this country. So a process that I think is very important for healing is that we, as I always say about dance, it's a visceral experience, it's an embodied experience. We move through the world in these lovely vessels that we've been blessed to have. And so all of those experiences and those memories we hold inside of these vessels as containers. So when we talk about a process for healing or really understanding our impact as humans with the land and environmental issues, we have to understand what a right relationship looks like. What does that mean? What does it mean to care for the land and every creature on the planet? Because we are all necessary. We are all vital for our environment to thrive. So when I think about healing and healing practices, very important that we understand how our human beings, our human bodies are a part of the cycle. And that's the healing mechanism for me, and being in space together. And like I said, understanding right relationship with land and healing and bringing in those traditions, those cultural traditions that we have with cultivating land, getting our hands in the dirt, and really, digging in. And now is the time to dig in and to make sure that we are taking care of each other and that we are taking care of the space that we've been given on this earth.
Yes, absolutely. A quite literal approach to touching with Mother Nature. Now, John, All Chicago is collaborating with Happy Returns to create what you're calling redemptive plastic. Can you explain to us a little bit more about that creative process of how you'll be what I'm calling turning trash into treasure?
Ooh, I love that, Angel. I might have to steal that tagline. And I definitely wanted to comment on Red Clay. The work that they're doing is acknowledging that not only is the soil an archive of our histories and of our present, but our bodies are an archive, right? And so how we move, we remember those movements. But as for the project Redemptive Plastics, for us, we live and work in Austin, Chicago. It's the largest of all 77 communities. Yet the narrative about the West Side, the narrative about Austin specifically is one of violence. And one thing that we've noticed during our work is one of the first signs of disinvestment is physical trash. And so what we've been doing is collecting that trash, but we wanted to take it a step further. Like, hey, the materials that we are majority collecting is plastic. Plastic after World War II was created as the material to live forever. And yet we use it in single-use objects like, a fork or, a Coca-Cola bottle. And so it's like, can we use this material in a new way? Can we redeem this object? And so I'm so grateful for my partners, Tom, Cody, and Jordan, because we have found a way to break down plastics and also create benches utilizing that plastic for the community use. And so there's a lot of stages to this project. The first stage is hiring our neighbors. That's the first way out of poverty. That's the first way towards innovation, is actually being able to hire our neighbors. So we're hiring a small cohort of neighbors. We're going to be collecting trash, cleaning that trash, learning about that trash, and then creating benches from that trash for our community. Because, our people, we like to linger a little bit.
That is very true about lingering. Now, how would you say that the community understanding how to utilize upcycling could encourage them to be more sustainable? I feel like it's a practice that a lot of folk are not familiar with.
I love this question because for us, sustainability is love over time. I think that we come up with these different strategies of what does sustainability mean, but what sustainability for us really means is continual care. Right? So that includes education. How do we educate people in order, because people don't want to live in dirty environments. And we all of us, regardless of race or gender, deserve a safe and clean environment to live in. And so with that in mind, once we teach people how to reuse things, reuse these objects for further use in a very cool way, people take it and run it with themselves.
Absolutely. Now, Uzma, jumping back to you, clearly both Rashawn and John's projects both require active community engagement. Why is the community involvement so important for their work?
Yeah, we wanted to ensure that as a part of this program that we didn't just take some art, a sculpture, or any kind of a performance and just place it into a neighborhood. That's why one of the criteria for this program was that you have to have pre-existing connections to the community and tell us what those connections are, because we wanted to make sure there was ownership in the community for something like this, and that neighbors would come out. So the engagement is really important because a lot of times the language can be very exclusive in how we talk about some of these environmental issues. For example, the question that you just asked, Angel, about certain communities not having these sort of strong commitments to sustainability, or not practicing it in the way that we like to traditionally think about it. I mean, an example I was thinking about is my mom has a collection of used yogurt containers that she washes and will reuse. but she would never say that she upcycles, you know? So there's just a lot of language that I think is being used that's like insider language that folks might not relate to. And somebody in their neighborhood might be able to find a way for them to relate. And that's why engagement is important, because both Rashawn and John talked about different ways of changing narratives, right? So changing narratives about the relationship to the land, changing narratives about Austin and what we know about it. And in the same way, you know, changing the narrative and how people think about their relationship to nature, to earth, to the climate, and knowing that we are addressing them too. And so that's, you know, I think that was very important, the engagement of not just environmental justice communities as a criteria of this grant program, but also areas where there are not a lot of public art assets. That was also a criteria of the program, is art opportunity areas. So neighborhoods that could benefit from public art and all of the togetherness that is a result of seeing a piece of art in your neighborhood.
Absolutely. Now, these are just 2 of the 11 featured project recipients. Their work will include a mosaic, a documentary film, sculptures, and more. Now, be on the lookout for their work over the next year, and our thanks to Uzma Noor Muhammad, Rashawn Ward, and John Veal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, a timeless performance. We'll explain coming up.
Don't ever miss Chicago Tonight. Subscribe to our podcast. Get a daily download of our show delivered to your desktop or mobile device. Go to WTTW.com/Chicago Tonight Podcast and subscribe.
A local Emmy-winning jazz vocalist is committed to ensuring students have the opportunity to pursue paths in performing arts. Now, the annual summer program offers music exposure for all ages and an opportunity to put what they've learned to the test in public concerts. We visit the West Loop to check out Timeless Gifts, a music review.
It is a remembrance, it is a reimagining, it is a tribute to some of the great iconic pieces in musical theater, film, and television that featured African Americans. You'll see little snippets from Serafina, Porgy and Bess, Dreamgirls. We have a Motown medley.
Comprised of students from ages 3 to 24, Timeless Gifts is a nonprofit created by local jazz vocalist Joan Colossal, who wanted to ensure children have the same exposure to musical opportunities that have allowed her to sing around the world.
It's just that outlet, that being able to express yourself in another way, being able to really be who you are sometime in your life.
While the 7-week summer program offers music and dance lessons, they also emphasize the importance of working behind the scenes, honing in on the idea that performing arts can be pursued both passionately and practically.
As you get older, it becomes less and less about the fame and the fortune and more about making a living, you know, and being realistic about what life is leading us into.
This commitment to practicality and performing arts extends to relationships fostered as well. 8-year-old Christian Williams has been a part of the program for the last 5 years and has found a mentor in his percussion instructor, Tony Carpenter.
He might be the best percussion instructor I could ever have.
They learn the different parts and put them together to make a rhythm, right? Let's see the hand movement. Tone, tone, heel, tip, smack, tip. Heel tip, right.
Yeah.
Christian has applied this understanding of rhythm to his first solo.
Oh, happy day.
It wasn't until Christian joined the program that he realized he even wanted to sing. Colosso says this is one of the many success stories for the program.
A lot of our young people, all they want to do is music. All they want to do is dance. All they want to do is play piano and write songs. And that is very important. and they can be successful. But the ones that are here and they really don't know, they're kind of on the fence about it, or I don't know if I really have talent that way, but I still am drawn to this. I think it's important for them to know that there's a place for them here as well.
You can see Timeless Gifts, a musical review, at their end of summer showcase, August 7th at the DuSable Museum. And that's our show for this weekend. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And if you're watching us on Saturday night, know that you can also catch Black Voices and Latino Voices on Sundays beginning at 10 p.m. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Angel Ito. Thank you for sharing a part of your weekend with us. Stay healthy and safe. Good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm, and proud sponsor of programming that offers advice and strategies to enhance the physical and mental well-being of fellow legal practitioners in Illinois.